Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Haribol. So, for about a month, we're doing a series on ethics, morality, and spirituality. And in the process of doing that, when we were talking on the subject of a higher or more transcendent reality and authority, it raised, of course, the question in some people's mind about a God or a higher spiritual reality or existence. And a person had sent in 3 questions, which were fundamentally, the first one was, why does a benevolent God allow evil or apparent injustice to exist? And so we tried to deal with that last week. We did fundamentally a topic called Why Do Bad Things Happen to Good People? And looked at the nature of the laws of karma. The other 2 questions that was part of that group of questions, there was actually quite a few that came in, was why did a perfect God create flawed beings? And the second part is kind of tied to that. Why are human beings allowed to make wrong choices? So we'll just try and deal tonight with the subject of free will and what it's about. The foundation of everything that we're discussing is the reality that we are all eternal spiritual beings. This body is not who we are, nor is the mind which covers us who we are. That there is another eternal spiritual reality of which I am part. But the human condition, not only the human condition, the material condition, means that I completely and utterly buy in to the wrong idea that the body is who I am. And because I buy into that idea, then I seek to find fulfillment, happiness. I seek to be eternal or eternally youthful. I seek perpetual love in that which is temporary and material. And of course, that's the proverbial, probably shouldn't say it, shit sandwich. It's not it doesn't have a good taste, and it's like humanity at large is just engaged in this perpetual engagement of what's called in the Vedas chewing the chewed. I don't know if you can relate to that. They use an example of someone chewing on some sugar cane and sucking all the juice out, then they throw it. And somebody sees that and they go, oh, I wonder what that was. And so they go over and pick it up and are going to have a second go at it. And then they're not getting much out of it, so they throw it, and somebody else looks at it and goes, well, I wonder what that was. And they go over and have a go at it. And so there is this perpetuation, of, this all based on an entirely erroneous idea. These questions that came in, this particular group of questions, are pretty much geared towards this notion that the world can be perfect. We've just got to find the right formulation of stuff. We've just got to hit all the right spots and it's going to be perfect. We can find some utopian existence. Whereas the Vedic and the yogic view was that one that we are caught up in what is called Samsara. Samsara means the perpetual wheel of birth and death. And it just doesn't really get much better. There can be variations, but I mean, this just opens up a whole nother can of worms here. Whether you're sitting in a slum in Bombay or Manila or in Brazil, or whether you're sitting in the restaurant at the what do they call it thing? The Needle? What is it? Sky Tower. Everybody's tongue works exactly the same way. Doesn't matter where you live and how much money you have, it never changes. It just doesn't. But we're caught up in this idea and notion that there is some perfection to be had here. I've just got to find the right combination for the safe to unlock it. As I mentioned last week, we are not flawed. What? No, we are not flawed beings. Our consciousness can become completely covered and contaminated, but that does not alter the nature of the eternal spiritual being. We use the example of like a diamond, that's underground in a mine. You don't appreciate its beauty. It's covered with rock and dirt and mud and everything. But once it's excavated and everything is removed, you can see the glory of the stone, as it were. And in a similar manner, the spiritual being may become covered, but the spiritual being is never corrupted. In our original condition, it still remains. Why are human beings allowed to make wrong choices? It's called free will. And of course, there's all kinds of people that usually want to debate about these things and have all kinds of different ideas to offer. Free will means the freedom to also make the wrong choices. And because you have the freedom to make the wrong choice, that doesn't mean there is something inherently imperfect in having free will. If you say there is, it means what you want to see is robots or computers that are all programmed to act in a certain way and produce certain sorts of outcome. And there is a serious problem with that kind of an idea or a notion. The single greatest possible spiritual experience is the condition of spiritual love, which is called prema. Every single living being is driven by the search for love, to love and to be loved. And it's kind of like, I just feel really sad when I look particularly at the Western world, the more developed world, where everybody's turning their quest for love into specie. Meaning I can't find the perfect human to love, so let me find the perfect dog or cat or budgie or cockatoo to love. And I pour out my heart and affection. And it's like, for me, it's kind of like, it's quite disturbing. I mean, there was something that just really shocked me. I had this little bit of an epiphany. I was sitting with a friend in a car in Christchurch waiting for this office to open, these engineers that we had an appointment with. And there's a guy sitting in the park. You know, Christchurch has all these really cool little parks, and there's a little stream running through this place. We're sitting there watching, and the guy's eating a sandwich. And then along comes his wife and 2 children and the dog. And the guy like completely ignored the family and just went straight for the dog, hugging it, embracing it, talking to it. And then everybody else jumped in, and it became a family thing where everything is just like totally centered on the dog, and the dog's licking their face and hugging it and kissing it and everything. And it's kind of like, spoiler alert, hey, you got a family there. This is not a criticism, but it's pointing to the reality that we have such difficulty trying to fulfill what is actually a spiritual need. The desire for love is part of who we are in our innermost being. When we are caught up with this misconception of the body as being the self, then I seek to fulfill it through material personalities. For love to be experienced, it requires that one voluntarily offers affection, of profound affection and regard. If a person does not have free will, then they don't have the freedom to do that. The whole subject of free will is actually very much tied to this spiritual reality. But people have very little knowledge or awareness of this. There is a wonderful verse in the Brihad Aranyaka Upanishad, which states that as tiny sparks fly from a fire, so all the individual souls have come from the Supreme. This speaks to our spiritual, the truth of and the reality of our spiritual being. The reason that we have awareness is because our origins, the supreme or highest truth, is conscious and aware. The reason that we desire happiness is because it is part of our eternal nature. The fact that we can misuse our independence, we can misdirect our consciousness, we can make bad decisions, doesn't mean that there is something wrong, inherently wrong, with free will. Our problem is we tend to look at things from a certain angle of vision. It's like a 6-year-old kid looking up at a basketball hoop and going, boy, that's really dumb. How come they design it to be so high? It should be lower so I can dunk and hang from the hoop. Well, that may be your view of things as a 6-year-old or an 8-year-old, but it is a certain type of understanding. It is a certain type of perspective. We are all driven, as I said, by the need for love. And the reason that exists is because eternally we are bound to that highest spiritual truth, the Supreme Soul, by a bond of kinship. That's part of our eternal spiritual nature. And free will is inherently required for us to be able to give our heart. Just as in this world, people have relationships and they give their hearts to each other, often doesn't work out too well. Or is that just my bad understanding? I mean, most marriages, unfortunately, end in great unhappiness. It wasn't like the plan. I was doing a meditation thing in the prison at Paramariamo. And I was talking to the guys in the group, and I was saying, how many of you actually had a plan to be here today? I mean, that was your plan from 20 years ago, on this date, I'm going to be sitting in Paramariamo. Nobody. So what does it indicate? It indicates I'm not totally in control of my life. I have misused my independence. I have misused my free will. And now I'm experiencing the consequences of that. So all choices have consequences. All choices have results. Inescapable. Inescapable. But in order for the living beings to be able to, I'll just make a statement and maybe at some future point we can talk about it. The material condition is not our natural state. This is an artificial state. Living in the consciousness that the body is me. Seeking to squeeze happiness and love and, complete fulfillment out of the material energy. This is not our natural state. That's why we feel so uncomfortable. That's why we feel unfulfilled, even when you've got everything. I mean, it used to blow my mind as I used to decorate palaces, and I'm in Saudi Arabia, a really hardcore Muslim country, and we're working on a project for, this really big time guy. The number 2 guy to the king. And it's 10 o'clock in the morning, and I'm sitting there talking to his wife, and she's just like totally inebriated at 10 o'clock in the morning and talking to me about, they just came back from Paris and how wonderful it was there. And you'll find out from one of the secretaries, they put $250,000 down on a bunch of stuff that they thought was going to be really good to have. Then they get back to Saudi Arabia and decide they don't want it anymore. And they just forego their deposit of $250,000. It's just too much hassle. And you spend time, and it doesn't matter whether you're on the streets of Calcutta or you're sitting in a private jet, spending $30,000, $50,000 on a weekend. Everybody has the same experience of a lack of fulfillment. Everybody has the same desire for perfect love, for perfect happiness. And you can just be consuming unlimited amounts of stuff, sticking things into every possible orifice of your body, and hoping that somewhere you'll find the magic formula. We feel ill at ease in the material condition. We're always looking, always on the hunt, because this is not our natural state. And spiritual life is really about reconnecting and experiencing the truth of our actual spiritual being apart from this body. And the highest possible experience that one can have, the highest realization of our spiritual being, is to experiencing the awakening of this indescribable experience of spiritual love. And for one to be able to do that, free will is required. The fact that the living being in a contaminated and distorted state of material consciousness, that they can misuse their free will, doesn't mean there's something wrong with free will. That shows you that there's something right with it. It is free. You can choose. But there are always going to be consequences. You engage in material activity, you will experience that fruit, sometimes bitter, sometimes a little bit sweet. You engage in that which is spiritual, and you experience transcendental fruit. So that's going to be it for this particular topic, finally closing it out. Any more questions get sent in. We won't deal with them, not here at this time. Anybody have a question? Sometimes people think I'm really pessimistic. No, I'm a transcendental optimist. I know you all to be eternal spiritual beings. Am I optimistic about your chances for experiencing the highest happiness in the material world? No. That doesn't mean I'm pessimistic. It's just the nature of things. It's just the nature of things. Don't be disappointed. Don't be upset. We get disappointed because we have so many unrealistic expectations. You've got to get over that one. You've got to see the reality of things. Once you see the reality of the nature of this world, once you understand that you are an eternal spiritual being, this is who you are. You are the Atma, the self, the perceiver. Then it's kind of like, okay, I get it. And it's just way less, not only way less stressful, one can come, even while being embodied, to experience the highest spiritual truth, reality, realization, enlightenment, the highest spiritual love. All, not only possible, but in reality, can be experienced. But you have to pay a price. As with everything. You have to give up chasing the fantasies and focus on that which is real. You have to give up the false expectations and have actual spiritual expectations.
Question online.
Yeah.
This person is asking, how do you make better choices?
How do you make better choices? Google it. No, that's not the right thing to do. You cannot make better choices if you are clinging to the idea that this body is me, this is my identity, this is who I am. And I can fulfill my deep spiritual needs through material experience. As long as you're clinging to that idea, your choices will always, often, or most of the time, will be bad choices. Bad choices in that they don't produce good outcomes. A really important part of making good choices is to become the director of your mind. We live in a world where you are encouraged to follow every desire and so-called be all you can be. It's just like, hello, are you serious? You think everybody can be number one? You think 20 guys are going to run the 100-meter dash at the Olympics, and then right at the last minute they're all going to hold hands and go across the line together so they all get a gold medal? What kind of, no. That's the nature of the material experience, winners and losers. But we live in a period of time that is so frightful compared to where we've been historically for thousands of years. We live in a time where we have totally lost control of our mind. The majority of what's going on in there has been put there by somebody. This is what advertising is all about. The ability to manipulate people to do things that they would not do voluntarily. And it's the promise that this will do it. Just try this. Just do this. This will do it. And it's the fundamental recognition that all underlies advertising. I know that you are empty. And all I got to do is promise you something that will fill up that emptiness. That's the principle that's been used. And you are encouraged to just cultivate endless desires and without any restraint attempt to fulfill whatever is there. Nike, just do it. That's the messaging, just do it, which is animal life. Human life is meant to be a life of restraint, of intelligence, of conscious and careful choices, really good choices that produce really good outcomes. And everybody has been encouraged to go the other way, to head into the animal sphere. You are just being flooded with things that stimulate desire, and you're encouraged to just endlessly consume and do all this stuff. If you do not have control of your mind, if your mind is directing you and leading you, oh, what's going to happen? Hey, how come we have the highest suicide rates ever? How come we have the highest rates of unhappiness? How come we've got these skyrocketing amounts of mental illness? I wonder if it's got something to do with that stuff. I mean, really, if you want to make good choices, you need to be the captain of your ship. You need to be making really good decisions. And a big part of that is connected to mindfulness. Mindfulness is not being in the moment. Oh, the spaghetti is, oh my God, it's so good. I got the basil, I got the flavor. That's not mindfulness. That's mindlessness. That's surrendering to the senses and trying to have a tongue orgasm or something, hey, lighten up. It's not that far out. Yeah, it may taste good. That's okay. It'll go. It'll pass like everything else. Don't fixate on it. You can't stay in that state. All this stuff comes and goes. If I am constantly driven by emotions and heightened states of emotions, whether good or bad, I will be making crappy choices. And I will experience crappy outcomes. My life will be deeply unhappy. To make good choices, you need some foundational truth. I am an eternal spiritual being. Aham Brahmasmi. I'm an eternal spiritual being. I am eternally bound in a mood of kinship to this supreme soul. And I've turned my back on all of this. I've taken on this outer covering and considering it's me, and I'm just whipping it. Whipping all my senses with endless exposure to stimulation. You can have unlimited amounts of stimulation and be having unlimited amounts of pleasurable experience and be deeply suicidal. Because that can't fulfill you. It doesn't do it. That's not happiness. Happiness is something else. You've been told that is happiness, and you're buying into it. Everybody. We're buying into it, and it's not true. You want to make good choices, you must work on the realization that I am an eternal spiritual being, that this mind and body is not me. I need to reconnect with my eternal spiritual nature, experience that reality. And the principal means for doing that is the process of meditation. And the use, specifically in this time and age, the use of spiritual sound. When we immerse ourselves in spiritual sound, it has a purifying effect on our heart, on our mind. Our real spiritual nature begins to manifest to us. We reconnect. Okay, sorry. Long answer. It's a hard question because we're dealing with consciousness. That's just like a huge subject. States of consciousness. Okay? That's it. Haribol. I'll sing the mantra Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Hari Om. Do we have that one there, Viva? Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.